To find a killer in Los Angeles, California. A sweeping manhunt triggered by this man, a former policeman accused of a shooting spree, targeting fellow cops and their families. And these images say it all. Police officers on the hunt for someone who knows their codes, their moves. On highways, a request that commuters study license plates and call 911. And tonight, a city is on the edge.
Christopher Jordan Dorner was born on June 4, 1979, in New York. He spent his early childhood growing up in Southern California with his mother and at least one sister, according to public records and claims in the Manifesto. He transferred between multiple schools in the area. From 1st to 7th grade, Dorner felt isolated, as he was the only African American student in his school, which resulted in numerous conflicts stemming from racism. From an early age, Christopher dreamt of becoming a police officer, leading him to join a youth program provided by the La Palma Police Department during his teenage years. In 2001, he completed his studies at Southern Utah University, earning a major in political science and a minor in psychology, while also playing as a running back for the university's football team between 1999 and 2000. While attending college, Christopher befriended a football teammate named Jamie Usera. Usera, who grew up in Alaska, said he and Dorner bonded over the feelings of culture shock that came with being outsiders on the predominantly white Mormon campus. The two often had heated but respectful arguments about the extent of racism in the country, with Usera later stating, quote, "I liked him an awful lot. Nothing about him struck me as violent or irrational in any way. He was opinionated but always seemed level-headed. Of all the people I hung out with in college, he is the last guy I would have expected to be in this kind of situation." In 2002, Dorner joined the U.S. Navy as a commissioned reserve officer, where he received extensive combat and counterterrorism training and earned commendations for his marksmanship with rifles and pistols. He led a security unit at the Naval Air Station Fallon in Nevada and served in a mobile inshore undersea warfare unit from June 2004 to February 2006. Additionally, he was deployed to Bahrain with Coastal Riverine Group 2 from November 2006 to April 2007, reaching the rank of lieutenant during his time in the service. Dorner was characterized as a likable man who was somewhat reserved, having been married without children, but later filing for divorce also in 2007. While serving in the Navy Reserve, Christopher Dorner joined the Los Angeles Police Department in 2005, concluding his training the following year. A fellow officer in Dorner's class recalled Dorner as, quote, "one of our problem children who liked to push the bounds of authority." The officer stated that Dorner was expelled from his academy class on at least one occasion due to accidentally shooting himself in the hand. Dorner's internal disciplinary records indicate a 2-day suspension in 2005 for an accidental discharge. He completed his training with a different academy class and officially became an officer in February 2006. Dorner completed his probationary training with the assistance of San Pedro training officer Teresa Evans. According to Evans, she later reported to Internal Affairs investigators that Dorner confided in her on their initial working day together, expressing his displeasure with the LAPD's handling of a complaint he had filed against several academy classmates. Dorner held the belief that the LAPD operated with racist principles and informed Evans of his intentions to file a lawsuit against the department upon completion of his probation period. Per Evans, Dorner continuously made mistakes while in the field and repeatedly sought to return to the academy for further training, becoming upset when the department refused his request. A few weeks later, on July 28, 2007, Dorner and Evans were dispatched to the Doubletree Hotel in San Pedro to address a disturbance caused by Christopher Gettler, a man with schizophrenia and severe dementia. While struggling to detain Gettler, Evans grabbed Dorner's stun gun to help subdue him. About 2 weeks later, Evans critiqued Dorner in an evaluation report, detailing a list of areas where improvement was needed. Around the same time, Dorner contacted an LAPD sergeant he knew from the Navy, accusing Evans of kicking the man while he was in the process of being handcuffed. The Internal Affairs unit of the department initiated an investigation into the allegations made by Dorner. 3 hotel employees who witnessed the incident denied seeing Evans kick the man, and upon arrival at the police station, The man did not report being kicked in the face while receiving treatment for his facial injuries from a physician. The investigators determined that Dorner's claim was a lie. Dorner faced charges for making false statements and submitting a false personnel complaint. He was terminated by the LAPD in 2008, even though Gettler's father testified at Dorner's disciplinary hearing, stating that his son had informed him of being kicked in the face by an officer. Christopher Dorner dedicated the next few years to appealing his termination without success, with Judge David Yaffe stating that he was, quote, uncertain whether the training officer kicked the suspect or not, yet still affirming the department's decision to fire Dorner. This incident served as the motivation that drove Dorner to commit a spree of violence aimed at law enforcement officers and their families. On February 1, 2013, Dorner sent a package to Anderson Cooper, which enclosed a DVD outlining his grievances against the LAPD, a coin shot through with bullet holes, and a note boasting of his accuracy with a rifle. His spree began 2 days later, when Dorner shot a recently engaged couple dead as they sat parked in their car outside their condo. 27-year-old Keith Lawrence, who was a public safety officer for the University of Southern California, and 28-year-old Monica Kwan, a women's basketball coach at Cal State Fullerton. Monica Kwan was also the daughter of Randall Kwan, a retired LAPD captain who had become a lawyer and represented Dorner at his termination hearing. The following day, Dorner posted his chilling 11,000-word manifesto online. The document detailed his grievances with the LAPD, alleging systemic racism, corruption, and abuse within the department. He claimed responsibility for the shootings of Keith and Monica, stating that Randall Kwan was more loyal to the LAPD than to him, and he would murder Kwan and his family for it. Dorner identified several specific officers and officials whom he alleged had mistreated him. Altogether, he intended to target 40 individuals within law enforcement, with the goal of killing them in order to clear his name. For unknown reasons, Dorner checked into a naval base in San Diego on February 5th, but left quickly after he was announced as the suspect in the double homicide days earlier. Allegedly, Randall Kwan also received a phone call from a man identifying himself as Dorner, saying he should have done a better job of protecting his daughter. Dorner was seen on surveillance tape days earlier purchasing scuba gear at a local sports store, which he likely had planned to use in an escape. Dorner's spree of violence continued February 7th. Around 1 a.m., 2 LAPD officers en route to a protection detail, tasked with guarding an officer potentially targeted by Dorner, were stopped by a man named Lee McDaniel. McDaniel reported spotting a man resembling Dorner at a Corona gas station. Upon investigating, the officers were following a pickup truck when the driver stopped and Dorner exited and immediately started shooting a rifle at them, slightly grazing one officer in the head. Dorner sped away, and about 20 minutes later, ambushed 2 police officers stopped at a red light in Riverside, killing Officer Michael Crane and severely injuring his partner. Around 3 a.m., a man fitting the description of Dorner attempted to steal a boat in San Diego, telling the boat's owner of his intention to go to Mexico. The owner was tied up at gunpoint by Dorner, but the plan failed, as a rope got stuck in the propeller, causing him to flee on foot. A few hours later, a local resident named Daniel McGowan located Dorner's charred vehicle on a secluded fire trail near Big Bear Lake. Inside the vehicle, authorities found the burned remains of several types of police equipment, various weapons including 2 AR-15 rifles, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, a knife, and survival equipment including a tent. Investigators spread out in their search for Dorner, and approximately 125 officers engaged in door-to-door searches. On February 10th, officials proposed a $1 million reward in exchange for information that would lead to the capture of Dorner. Amidst apprehensions that he might make for the Mexican border, an unmanned aerial vehicle was deployed to assist the aerial search, as Dorner was presumed to be concealed somewhere within the San Bernardino Mountains. 2 days later, Jim and Karen Reynolds came home to their cabin just before noon and were surprised to see Christopher Dorner in their home. Dorner tied the couple up before stuffing washcloths in their mouths and covering their faces with pillowcases. After spending a few moments gathering his possessions, Dorner fled the residence in their vehicle. The couple waited several minutes until they were sure he was gone, then assisted one another in removing the pillowcases from their heads before dialing 911. After the call, a car chase ensued between Dorner and law enforcement, though he successfully escaped. He wrecked the car while fleeing and carjacked a white Dodge truck without harming the driver. At 12:22 p.m., deputies from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department acted in response to a report of the carjacking, initiating a search for the vehicle both on land and from the air. Upon locating the truck, officers from various agencies pursued Dorner to a cabin near Big Bear Lake. Dorner began rapidly firing at the officers, striking two. The officers were transported by helicopter to Loma Linda University Medical Center, where Detective Jeremiah McKay was pronounced dead. Initially, police sought to force Dorner from the cabin by deploying tear gas and demanding his surrender with loudspeakers. After Dorner failed to react, police used a demolition vehicle to destroy most of the cabin's walls. They then fired pyrotechnic tear gas canisters into the cabin, igniting a fire. A lone gunshot was heard from within the cabin soon after. As the fire blazed, ammunition began to detonate inside the cabin, making it a hazardous situation that prevented officials from extinguishing the fire. In reports the day after, Dorner's burned remains were stated to have been found during a search of the cabin. In the aftermath of Christopher Dorner's violent spree and death, a complex and polarized response unfolded in public and media narratives. Though his actions were widely condemned due to the lives lost and threatened during his vendetta, some individuals and groups expressed support for Dorner, particularly focusing on the allegations he leveled against the LAPD in his manifesto. Dorner's writings, which detailed purported systemic racism, corruption, and violence within the LAPD, resonated with some people who have experienced or acknowledged similar issues within police departments, thereby garnering him a surprising degree of support. During the manhunt for Dorner, the LAPD was involved in 2 incidents where unrelated civilians were shot due to being misidentified as the suspect. In the early hours of February 7, 2013, LAPD officers, protecting a fellow officer's residence in Torrance, opened fire on a light blue Toyota Tacoma, severely injuring occupants Emma Hernandez and her daughter Margie Carranza, who were delivering newspapers. Officers misidentified their vehicle as Dorner's due to its proximity to an official's residence and its headlights being off, despite significant differences in vehicle and occupant descriptions. A second incident unfolded 25 minutes later, when Torrance Police Department officers rammed and fired upon David Perdue's black Honda Ridgeline, again misidentifying it as Dorner's vehicle, despite stark differences in vehicle type and Perdue's appearance. Subsequent lawsuits led to substantial settlements for the victims: $4.2 million for Carranza and Hernandez from the LAPD, and eventually $1.8 million for Perdue from the city of Torrance after initial offers were rejected. The events surrounding Dorner's spree and the resultant actions of the LAPD opened a multifaceted discussion on police reform, systemic issues within law enforcement, and the balance between seeking justice and ensuring the safety and rights of the innocent. Please share your thoughts and perspectives on this case in the comment section. If you found this video insightful, do consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.